Brother Art Smith and President of Sydney, Larry Maguire, were looking at me and just laughing.
Tō tātou apu te toro āti trahi tu ahuru, ho ataro rāua ti te amai au whaoono mai au I taua tei mera.
I said, that is not very helpful.
Nā rai oe rāua ai te rotu te ihu pai tauturu rai au
So I proceeded to do it again.
Nene oe rāua whaahu te ihu pa.
And I pushed her down as hard as I could, very quickly, and she did go all the way under.
Me te mea rei ua tāmi ho I ana e hariro e mātai me te umo e roto nau po, e hariro hoi nana o I te mai.
But I did it so quickly that the top of her head was dry.
Mai te mea rei vai marono ropa I te ni ar au tono rourua.
And the lady on the side saw that it was dry and pushed her back again.
Hare me ne te tuhine tāpai ki ahun tuhine pārheira, hare wahau mai ne te tū ahau te oru tu te me yarari hop e te rahi atu te po.
And the apostle was filming and he quickly went and checked and said, yes, she was all the way under.
Tō tātou apo te toro te filmera pe ona te papiti tora ena mene, o te se pao papiti tohi ona.
Sometimes the Spirit, I think, must have a sense of humor.
Me tei mo te me tāon te naona ropa e wo I te warua mai tei pei, e tāta hou atau o tara, warua mai tei pei, e tāta ri paha ki tātāra.
I think those other women were concerned that if she didn't go all the way under, that she wouldn't make it to heaven.
Mai te mea rapa I te tuhine te manaora ai te pai ona I whiruri mi te lia ropa hai e te huru whaanhora ai tupua.
As a priesthood member, you will find yourself sometimes in those awkward moments.
Ini ei te teiteine, ini ei te te mo tāpura hupa, ei au tau ara, I te tātou me eri pe tā tātou hupa tāwanira I taua tei mera.
So we're reminded that we do our very best to follow the spirit of the law.
Te mea no e papu I tātou I papu mai tei e tātou te peera tātou I te warua mai tei e tauturura I tātou tu te upa tāwangira.
And when we say to others, we've accomplished the spirit of the law, let us be at peace with that.
Mai te mea rai e te hoa tātou te whātupu na tātou I te warua mai tei o te atua. No te mea e tupu mai roto mai tera tāpura upa, e te tātou te weinei hoa te hau I roto.
I have shared this experience with some others and have been told you must go and rebaptize her because she was not completely immersed.
O I te tātou e rito I te te mo āmui rā, me te peu e wei marono te rahi te mea te tātou po, e titohi e hoi tātou te anine e tātou e aho e papiti tohi a.
So, I'm sure you have had similar kinds of experiences.
Te papu nei au e te wei toara te te mo aamu e o I te oto e minawhia I te tere rā.
It's all part of our rather remarkable journey.
Mai te mea rei, tiroto pauro te mo upa, tiroto pauro I te mo prauwhaite I te wha pautūtura I tātou I te tātou upa tāwini rā.
Let's now talk about the office of teacher.
Hare tātou mua, hare tātou I te parauno te hapi.
The teacher models the ministry of Jesus as the peacemaker.
Wariro te hapi o ona e te ite mai a ietura I te whaatupura, te tātai whaatupu I te hau.
The teacher promotes the development and nurturing of a healing, redeeming, and prayerful environment.
E imi te hapi I te rawea, ia hutu mai, ia wainua te varua no te whaawhaite rā, whaahau rā, e tā mahanahana rā te tai e te tai, e te pure.
The teacher helps persons build strong, positive images of themselves.
Nenhe te hapi e tauturu I te mautata, ia patu I te tai hohoa, hau mai tai, parau pai tātou positive, hau mai tai no rātou sho.
The teacher helps assist persons in building relationships that are based on love and acceptance.
Wariro te hapi te tata, nana tauturu te tata no te hamaura ai te tei tuia ura te tei hauhoara o te niuhi e tere, te arofa, te whari a te tei te tei.
Teachers are persons who help encourage and strengthen relationships.
O te hapi te tata, o te hapuai, o te whaahau, ona te tata te ihia, no te hapuai ai te tuia ura te wei nei rutu te tata.
I know a number of evangelists in the church that like to have a teacher accompany them when they do visits because of their abilities to be sensitive to the needs of relationship.
Wai te au i rutu te taretia te wene te te mo hapi e waneria, ti tau rātou i te taimau te me te mo hapi ia ape rātou, ia ape ia rātou i rutu tau rātou uhipa tāwini rā, no te mea, te ria tā rātou uhipa, no te hapua i rā, i te whaawhai te rā, hapua i rā, i te whaora rā, tāmahanahana rā, i te tei, i te tei.
I really like that image of the teacher as Jesus as the peacemaker.
Me auro nā utra hohoa i te paraura wariro te hapi, hi ora e o i tū te tata i awhai nei te hau.
The teacher is of the priesthood offices has the fewest ordinations take place. There are fewer teachers than any other priesthood office.
Te weira, te tei mo teime, tei mo wahi, ninhe, te hapi, e whaatupu te whaatoro ana.
It is a very specialized calling.
Hupa, pir a tae mo te ie.
But I think you recognize that it's a very important responsibility and type of ministry that is needed in every congregation.
Maramarama mai te hoa tātou te parau no te hapi, i te hoa tātou mea whawhāhua hoi hapi I ruto toi amui rā.
Every congregation goes through struggles of relationships of members in the congregation.
Wai te tātou I ruto te mo amui rā atoa, te wene hoa te teimo te teime tawhiwhiri tara tātai te tei tātai te tei. Te wene hoa tara I ruto te mo amui rā atoa.
Teachers develop the skills to help bridge those relationships and heal the divisions.
Imi te hapi I te mo hapi rā atoa, hapau tūtu ona iana, ianene he tata ihia te mo mea. Te mo huti rā mana, te mo tae rā I te tei.
How many of you are married or have been married?
Hia o tau ua whaipūpo. Aore rā ua whaipūpo na.
In your relationship, have you ever had disagreement or division with your spouse?
I roto I to o tau whaia rā I to o tau mauhoa, hia o tau wā tupu te tei ai maro rā nei, te tei mo tumu parau.
Or maybe Tahitians, they all get along perfectly together all the time, yes?
Pene apa te praura pai ona, pene apa I tō pori netia mehere rōs pōro mo teime apa.
Teachers are called to help in those kinds of relationships.
Te mau hapi, o rātou te pihia, no te tata I ai te huru.
So the calling of teacher is important.
No reira, me whawhāroa te pi ahia I te mau hapi.
Again, take a few moments and visit with your neighbor, the person next to you, how you believe that a teacher can strengthen congregational life.
Te wahau te wira, huri te tei, te wira, me nā whea, te hapi, nen he hapuai, hawhawhātua I tura rā no te amui rā.
Okay, so take just a minute to do that.
Hoi no miniti.
Do we have persons here tonight that serve in the office of teacher or have been called to be a teacher?
Te weira nei rutupu I tātou I te tei mō tātou te pi hia e hapi, o re rā te whaingi hi ara e hapi, te weiga?
If you are, could you raise your hand?
Ai te mainga, nā rutoi ta apa i rārima, whai me tō tātou ri mai nia.
Thank you.
Maroro.
I meant to ask earlier, are there any here who serve as deacons in the community of
Te weira
Christ?
te mō te atono.
Yeah.
Maroro.
Thank you for the ministry that you provide. And I know we have some new callings that had just happened, were approved yesterday, of deacon and teacher.
Maroro mai te no ta oto ohi patawingi rā, ua i te atu ai ni au e, inan hei nei wa hamanahia te te mau i api rā i te au taua rā. No papara, nini ne.
Let's talk now about the priest in the Aaronic priesthood.
Hare tātou i e te parau no te taua.
The priest follows the model of Jesus as friend.
Ia parau na hea te parau no te taua, e wariro o te taua e hoho a tapea no tātou tara hoho ai, o ietu e hoho.
The priest interacts with families to support their spiritual growth and discipleship through prayer, the scriptures, and nurturing relationships.
Wariro o te taua, e nana e ora i te mo e ora i eso i te mo utua whare no te whai te tur ai rātou i te turura i te hupa wārua. E oti i te parau no te ora rā tō e pipi i ruto ana i te parau no te pure, e te parau no te mautai ora e te parau no te tui ora i te tai e te tai.
The priest promotes the presence and participation in church life.
Nā te taua e whai tūtū i tātou e ia pārhei me hoa tātou i ruto i te mo tāpura e hupa au te taretia.
Priests in the congregation should be the first to notice that one of the members are not in attendance on that Sunday.
O rātou te mo tāta mātāngua e o te i te ai te urei ari i mātai me te tāpati. O rātou te mo whea i te mātāngua ro no te mea, te hi ora rātou tui tāmui rā, wa saparei ari i te tāpati.
And good priests will make contact with them saying, you were missed on Sunday.
E toi taua mai tai, e no ai ane te pēr ai, e rei ari e wai te au e tue haru mai pure rā, iau tō parau e ari, hiro e tērā tāpati, no te parau rā mā te āau maru e mawhre, e tue haru mai tāpati, sawa e hachoro, ngara.
You would ask, is everything okay?
Tara e ani o tō e hachoro, sawari, o re rā sawa potoro.
So you keep in touch with the people to show them that you care.
Mai te mea ra I ha tātou e ui te mauiwi rāno te hi o pār āno te parana e rawahua rātou I o bengi la mer e re ni te ria. No te whai te rāra te taua nei o tō I tōna ora rā. Te hapa nei o tō I tōna ora rā. Mi te ria te huru parau ia no te parau rā e te ro e tara tāpati. Hare o e bingo ahau. E re ni te ria ni ama.
I had a church member come to me once.
Hoe mero rā, haramei wharere iau te teitei me.
And they said, a year ago, I stopped coming to church.
Te nāora pai ona hoe ma teiti tei nei, wa whae au I tū haramei wa ahu te pure rā.
It took 9 months for someone to ask me why I wasn't coming anymore.
Wa whae te me ona iau o tei orohia nāna iwa e muri mai. I rea to tō e tātak ningur amai e mawhre e hatu e huru.
And she said, I missed because I was sick the first time.
Te nao nei tōna reo paraura wahuru, nai o paraura wahuru peapeari iau no te mea o pepe wo I te mau teine mātāmua.
And she said, but no one called me to see if I was okay.
Tēnei ai te hoe a tātai pi mai iau.
And then she said the next week, my daughter was sick and we didn't come.
Tau he peto mai muriso, wa mai hia tau tumahingi, ai te hoe a tātai hara mai whanere.
And she said no one called me to see if we were okay.
Ai te roa tuho e tātai pi mai au e hāturu me mei te oe, ta e mahine.
She said, I'd been having a lot of struggles, and I realized that nobody there really cared whether I was there or not.
I ria tō nā ora ai te ora nei pei o te tei mau whiwhiru tui tō ora rā. E ora e hi o nā o te taretia, te roa tuho e tātai tau o mai ra e hato tō huru.
And so I just stopped going.
I reira tō whaotira e tō hari whao purera.
And the only reason I came many months later is because my parents were visiting from out of town and said, we want to go to church.
I tō noa tei me tare rā me o purera no te mea, te hari me ne tō mau me tua i rutu i tera amuhi rā tō, i ea no te tei me hari me e au te purera. No te mea wata mai tō mau me tua.
Sometimes it's just a simple phone call asking, are you okay? We missed you.
Me tai mo tei me, te tai noa pi rā i te niu te parau rā e hāturu. Mei te oe, te ria no, nā wai no tara.
Priests are to be the friends of the people.
Tara ia te tōrua, taua, wharirohi rātou e hoa.
Priests serve as an advocate for members and families throughout the community.
Wariro atoa, nen he tātou e whariro e taua, o ona te tia no te mero i moe tō te taritia.
So priests model Jesus as friend.
Nō reira, e tia mai hua te taua, e riro e hoa.
So with your neighbor, talk a few moments about how you believe a priest might strengthen the congregational life.
Nō reira, poraporo ahau tātou te teimo miniti, te teimo te toni no te whai te rā me nawhia ho e taua, e nene he hapu ai i toi anui rā.
This evening, do we have any persons who serve in the office of priest or who have been called to be a priest?
I roto pui tātou te wai ane i te teimo taua, wapi i taua rātou, aure rā, te whainginge hi ara rātou i taua. A whai mei tō tātou rima ia.
Yeah. Thank you.
Maroro mai te e tau tū hipa tāngi rā.
Let's talk about the Melchizedek priesthood.
Hare tātou ni e tau taua rā merihi te tata, i ni e te tōrua pereti putero.
And the office of elder. The elder models Jesus as the shepherd.
Horiro te pereti putero, o ona e tōhoa, test nadu. Ietu te tia e mamoi. Ietu te tia e mamoi.
The elders are called to assist in giving leadership in the congregation.
E tautunu te pereti putero, i ni e te parau no te arata i rā, e toe amui rā.
The elders are called to administer the sacraments of the church.
E tia, i toe pereti putero, e whaatupu, i te taitua anō te mau oru amoa.
The priest also offers some of the sacraments in the church.
Nini he te mau pereti putero, e opere te mau oru amoa, i rito te taretia.
And the role of the deacon and teacher is not in administering the sacrament, but helping the people to prepare to receive the sacrament.
Ia hina mei tātou e te parau no te tiatono, no ārona, ai te rātou e te parau no te whaatere rā. Tō rātou ti ara no te whainene rā i e te wharua o te tāta, e ia whari mai te wharua o te atua.
Elders are also called to be active in assisting in the missionary work of the church.
Nen he atua tō te mau pereti putero, e tawini, e tauturu, e te parau no te tere miti nare rā, i roto i te parau no te taretia.
So the elders model Jesus as the good shepherd.
E hare hoa e tera parau e, wariro te pereti putero mai a ietu ura, i e tō ti ara a, tōna ti ara a, tia i mamoi.
And sometimes elders are called to serve as the pastors of a congregation.
Me tei mo teime e pihia te pereti putero, e o ona ana, o ona te riro e tia i amui rā.
Not for life,
Ia pēna hei e te amui rā, i hae te tātu ar au tōna ora rā,
but for a time.
no te teira teime tano.
Sometimes when persons serve as pastor, they feel that when they finish, they want to retire.
E aura e te wera I roto I te tei mau te varua no te tei mau au tauara merihi te teta e te mau te pereti putero te wherurira rātou e ia stop na rātou e te amui rā e retret roi. Tari pei tō rātou wherurira.
Which is indicative of how tiring it can be to serve as the pastor.
Me te pewe wata tō tātou wherurira I te ria teime waha matai e tātou te rahui.
So you want to give person serving as pastor an opportunity to step aside to provide ministry in their priesthood office so that they can rejuvenate themselves to maybe serve again in the future as pastor.
Te mea e anihia I to e te e amuira o I hoi ia riro noa tera to ano te e amuira ho e tāhira ho e tāhira ho e teimi rutu I to o e orara e veiso ia wha api hia te mau te e amuira e pene ia I te mau matai te harehia mene e riro whaho mai e o e te e amuira.
So again, the same question. How can the elder strengthen congregational life?
Harawa hau ngai te ia wira. Me nā whea ho e periti putero nene e hea puai I te orara o te amuira.
I invite you to share with your neighbor. Do we have persons here tonight that serve as an elder in the church?
Te wera ni tupu I tātou e periti putero, I roto I te taretia, o reira te whaingi ara e periti putero. A whai mei tō tātou e mai nia.
Yeah. Thank you for your ministry.
Maruru no tā o tō ripataru.
Very quickly, we'll talk about the role of the high priest.
E hare poto no mai tātou I nia I te tauarhei.
The call of the high priest are to be ministers as visionary ministers, as Jesus was.
Te ia te hi ora no te hoe tauarhei. Ietu mai te tei tātā te hi o atea.
As visionary leaders are often called to serve in leadership roles of the world church.
E te rahi rao te mau teime, e tawini te mau tauarhei, I rito I te rati ara no te harat eid aia I te taritia. I te taritia ngui wara.
Just as the elders do, the high priests also serve the sacraments of the church.
Mai tā te periti putero e rawera, o tā te tauarhei ato aia e rawera.
High priests are also members of the quorum of high priests.
E te roto atoa te tauarhei I te ie pupu o te ipihia, te pupu no te mau tauarhei.
And that's when the high priests gather to talk about their role in helping the church become visionary in responding to its vision into the future.
Mai te mea rai e ruru te ene pupu no te mau tauarhei, no te whiruri ra e ha te mau he o atea a tat e taretia e nen he wharerei, e ha te mau mea api tat e taretia e nen he e whiruri, nā te ia pupu o te mau tauarhei, te ia taratu o hipa.
Do we have persons who serve in the office of high priest
Te
here
wera
tonight?
ne, I tupu I tātou e tauarhei. Ai tia, no?
Yeah. And there are some high priests who are called to be bishops.
Te wei ara, te wei to ara, te teimo tauarhei, te ihia e pititopo.
And evangelists.
Aore rai, hapi e waneria.
Very specialized, important ministries in the church.
Te tiara ano te hapi e waneria, me tā e ihoa tōna pi ai rutu te taritia.
Do we have any bishops or evangelists that are
Te
here
wera te mo
tonight?
e pititopo, aore rai hapi e waneria, te wera te hapi e waneria.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Maruru.
In the community of Christ, we are called what's termed a theocratic democracy.
Te ie te tei parau whauwharoa e utu I te parau no te taritia. I utu I te taritia, te tiaturi ne tātou I taua paraura demokrasi, teokrasi. O iho ia, e horo ahia te mana, I ruto I te nuna ata, e reo to oi, e te wei atua te reo no ruto mai te atua.
It is the unusual combination of believing that God leads us from above, but through the will of the people.
Ere te mea, e praupa iwo, ere te mea tamaurua te huru whiruri rae, mai te mea rae, te e taretia te tiaturi nei nā te varua te atua, heratei nei e tātou, au Māoti I te varua o te tata.
What that means is that sometimes God is calling us, but we're not willing to follow that calling.
Te ieri I te tei parau te tiaturi nei tātou te tei mo tēne, tahi mai te tei pīr anō o mai te atua. Are ara, he toa te tata, whaoti I ha tātou pē tara pīr anō o mai te atua.
Some of you may have remembered in 1984 when Section 156 of the Doctrine and Covenants was presented to the church.
Te weira pāho pēo tātou, te haman aora, te tūr aparau te taretia, I te mataiti tautini wahanere au ahoru mā mahara.
That was the council that included the call to build a temple.
Te tūr aparau te I te pīra ia patuhia I tō tātou hiro.
But it's most remembered for its statement regarding the calling of women into the priesthood.
Te wei atu anei, te parau no te pīrahia I te mautuahine I te autau ara.
The language in that revelation to the church is very interesting.
Ia hi ona tātou I te mautura parau, te tomara o te parau, I ruto I te pīra me huru tā I ona.
Brother Wallace B. Smith was the prophet of the church at that time.
O Wallace B. Smith o tātou peritini profeta I tau ano taura.
And the language he chose to share in that council
te mau tao, te tūra aparau tānai maiti, I ruto I te tūra aparau.
was not that the church is now going to do something different and something new.
Te naora pai tara whiruri ai tato te taretia I pihia, rawa I te tei uhupa api.
Rather, it lifted up the principle that said, as God has always said, all are called.
Te naora ratara tūra aparau mai tā te atua I whahiti ina I te mau ano tau atoa, ua pi te atua I te tātua rau tātou.
And do not be surprised that women are included in all.
Te naora tōna reo I ha tātou maere ua pi hia te mau tuahine.
God has been calling women since the beginning of time.
Te tāmaunua nei o nei ruto I tāna parau, ma te parau te mau tuahine, ua pi na hia rātou, ina hae te whai te hia rei ruto I te whauwhatahito.
It was the patriarchal culture of generations that was not listening to what God was calling.
Mai te mea ra wariro pai te ria whaatere rai ruto I te ora rā te mo atiuta patriarkal, o te mau tāne ana te ria whaatere rā. Ai tarai wharo I te ria pi rā te atua.
Men stood in the way of the calling of women.
Te naora ona ai ta te mau tāne tau ano taura, I wharo I te pi rā te atua.
And when that began to take place, there were many members in my family, aunts and uncles, who said, the church has completely gone astray.
Te hamanaora o taratai me, te tei pēo tō mātou tua whare, te naora pai taratura parau au te hare awhorono atura te taretia.
The church will fall apart.
He topatari te taretia.
Next year, we will be ordaining a woman as the president of Community of Christ.
Tāmai te tātou te mataiti muri nei, pihia, te tuhine mātāmuaroa, periti tingi.
The church didn't fall away. It became strengthened in ways that it had never imagined.
Ai te roa tu te taritia I veisohia. Ai te roa tu te taritia I topatari. Wa pueira te taritia. Iau I te arata I a te atua.
I think, as far as my understanding is, that at the 2025 World Conference, when Sister Stacy Cram will be set apart as the president of the Community of Christ will be the only denomination, Christian denomination, that is led by a woman.
I te matei te muri nei, te piti tautini piti ahuru mapā, mana ona e au, o te taritia te au tei no te meti ana, te hapora e tūnei to e tūhine, e arata e to e taritia.
What a historic moment in the Christian life.
Mai te meara e uhipa whauwhaaroa, e oroa te I parau I ruto I te tua ai, I hano te taritia no te tātu ara o te mauterititiano.
So, Community of Christ is a unique movement.
I tau nei manao, te au taino te metia, ho e noa te e hap or ai me ta e roa ona.
For many years, we struggled with who we were as a church.
Paramau, hea mataiti te nei, wa ta whiwhiri I tātou I e to tātou iho, o wai maua tātou e taritia.
We were not always known as Community of Christ.
Paramau, ere tātou te au taino te metia, I te rātau.
The church I grew up in, and many of you, was in English called the Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Paramau, wau nei, o paariwo tu tera e taritia te pihia, ma tā morua, e taritia, whaapihia, e no te mawhia mua, mo mhana hope api.
That was my church that I was born into.
Paramau, te e taritia e wauravo, e o paariwo I ruto I te ria e taritia.
That my mother was born into.
E o whanauhia me tō mito o hengi ruto I te ria e taritia.
That my grandfather was born into.
Tau paparu au atua, whanau atua hi ruto.
That my great-grandfather was born into.
E tau mautupuna, ki roto atua rātou.
And one that my great-great-grandfather joined when he was a young man.
Ia, poura tātou I raroroa, ho e o rātou wa amui me ruto I te hapora e taritia I taua taura.
When the church announced that we would change the name,
I te teime a prau e taritia e tau I hia tei o te taritia.
I was okay with that,
Whari au tara manao.
but I was not unhappy with our old name.
Ai te tau o pe aroara I te veisora I trai o teito to tātou.
But the new name sparked something anew in me.
Tau whaarora te o api no te taritia, wa tupu te tei o hipa apu api I rutu I te ora rau.
Most of my young adult life, when asked about the church, I had to explain who we were not.
I te teime a taurea a iau, I ani na hea mai au e ha tāu e taritia, te mea tāu e parau, te mea ia tāu e taritia, e eretara.
When I was be asked, what church are you a member of, I would give Reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Parau na hea au e mero rano te taritia, e ha te taritia tō e te are. Parau hoa hea au e taritia, e tumetia, te whapihia.
And the next question was always, oh, you are Mormon.
Te wira I muni me, tara hoa e tūra parau e, momoni hoa oe.
And I said, no.
Ande, aita.
And then I would spend the next hour explaining to him how we were different with the Mormons.
Papu mai e hoa ia trai hora mo muri ne, tra mo hore muri no te parau ra aita, ai te mātou rawe tara, ai te mātou tara, ai te mātou rawe tara, ai te mātou rawe tara.
So our identity that I was explaining was not who we are, but who we're not.
Mai te mea rapa te wawau rapa mo e tara tāta tō tātou iho, te iho tumo te taritia. Te parau o iana ere mātou tara, ere mātou tara, ere mātou tara.
Today, when I'm asked the question, what church are you a part of?
Te mahana, iani na hei mai iau ha te whaaro tāu e te aturi nei.
And I say, the community of Christ.
Ai e prau ai o au tai no te metia.
And their response,
E prau ai rātou e, pahono mai rātou e.
it's not, oh, you're Mormon.
Nā rātou hoi prome, e re o e te momonia.
Instead, it's, I've never heard of you.
E tai mo te me prau ai rātou e, a te ro wharo e tēnā prau e au tai no te metia.
What is community of Christ?
E ha te au tai no te metia.
And I have such a joy now of sharing with them community of Christ are a people that God has called to make a difference.
Oi te rei te parau rā, o aro i te parau rā iana e, oi te taritia te au tai no te metia, e pupu tata te i o te pi e te atua.
And they say, well, what do you believe in community of Christ?
E ani mai rātou e hei a tau tō mō te aturi rā.
And I say, community of Christ is not about a set of beliefs.
E parau ia rātou e te au tai no te metia, e ere toi a papara a te aturi rā.
Community of Christ is about a way of living life.
Te au tai no te metia, te hoe ia huru hora rā. Trā te au tai no te metia.
We are guided by 9 enduring principles.
Warat e hia tō tātou ora rā, e nā whaoti rā tā mau e iwa.
And I share some of those principles.
E parau i ana, te nā iwa. Whanau rā, iwa tui te taritia, nā rata i rā, atai, apeti.
And which one I share often depends upon the person I'm talking with.
E te reira o teime, te teime, e hi o i ana e hata mea tāu e nenghe parau, rei roa e. E hata mea tāu e parau, rei roa e nā iwa e mea tā maur a te taritia.
But the one I share with most is, one of our enduring principles is the worth of all persons.
E te mea roa nā ue parau, te mō tāta tarai e parau e whauwha tō te mō tāta atoa.
I share God values us all equally.
E reo e wharo i ana e, reo e parau i ana e, i mua te aro te atua, e whauwha tō te mō tāta atoa.
I even have some of them ask, well, what about women in your church?
Me aro nā o te teimo teime e ui e te parau na te mō tuhingi rutu e tau e tarite e hāturu.
And I share, well, my pastor is a woman.
I reo e parau e, o te oe tomato te e amuira, e tuhingi.
And the apostle that I work with is also a woman.
E tomato a po te toro, e te hupa whatatane iau, e tuhingi.
And at the time Stacy Cram was the presiding bishop, I said, and my boss is a woman.
E tāno atua i te teime e whātoro hea tō tātou periteni e tuahine, e parau i ana e, o, tō boss, e tuahine.
Sometimes I like to share the principle, the unity in diversity.
Me awa tō ana au e parau i te mōtāta i te parau e, te ho e rā, i rutu i te tā e rā.
And the response is always, what?
E tērā mōtāta e mēre rātou i te parau e, e hata au e parau rā.
Because that's odd. Unity in diversity?
No te mea, mi huru tā e rote i parau, no te mea, te ho e rā, i rutu i te au tai, e huru. E te ura tēnā parau tāo.
And I share with them, we value the rich diversity that we have in our church.
E reo e tāmu ahau tara parau e, i rutu i te taritia, e hāwhau whāhia te mō tātā toa. No te mea, e whauwha tō te tātata i tei.
In American culture, diversity is sometimes seen as a weakness.
I ruto, ia tāmai te tātou, i ruto i te parau no te mō tātai orara i te whenua marite, ia whahiti nahia te parau no te raura, i riro te manao hēhēr a i te tei.
Particularly by some American politicians.
I roto i ora, i te parau no te orara a puritita.
But in community of Christ, I say, we value and see strength in our diversity.
Waura, mea roia nā ue tāwingi e te ria parau e, i rutu i te au teino te metia, te hāwhau whaahia nei, te tā e rā, te hāwhau whaahia nei, te tāta, i rutu i tōna tā e rā.
Our diversity makes us a stronger community of faith.
I rutu i tau raura, e i te hia e te pūai.
As priesthood in the church, you're part of something special.
Ia tāmai te tātou e, mai te peu e, wariro tātou e au tau ara, E uhipa ta e mei te ita tātou e amora.
We are community of Christ.
No te mea, wariro tātou e au tai no te metia.
It's not just a church.
E ere noa i tō e parau, e ere noa i tō e ioa, e ere noa i tō e pupu tāta noa.
It is a calling to become a people of faith.
Wariro rā te e pīra te e no o mai te atua, e ariro tātou e nuna whaaro.
Listening to God
Whaaro i te atua.
and following the path that was set for us by Jesus.
A pe noa i tātou i te ea o te tareia mai e ietu me tia.
It's not a church.
E re tō e parau noa e taretia.
It is a way of life.
E huru ora rā te ie.
May God bless you
I
in
hamai
your
te me te
journey.
atua i tātou.
Thank you for your participation tonight.
Maruru tu tātou tēnā mai. Sorry.